A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
Hey Remodelers, before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our friends at Builder Funnel. I've personally known Spencer and his team for over a decade, and they are the marketing agency that helps remodelers generate more leads, book more projects, and grow revenue. If you're tired of relying on the inconsistency of referrals and want a system that brings in predictable, high-quality leads, Builder Funnel can help. Head over to builderfunnel.com/ROTR to learn more. Builderfunnel.com/ROTR to learn more. Okay. All right, folks, welcome to the Remodelers On The Rise show. A lot of times I have a guest or we have a topic where I'm pretty familiar with it. I kind of know a thing or two about it. Today, just like all of you listening or a lot of you listening, I'm going to be learning right there along with you because we have Jennifer Winegardner from RW Law Firm down in Tallahassee, Florida. Jennifer, how would you describe Tallahassee to us if we've never been there?
Well, Tallahassee is the most northern southern city. It's a big town, a small city, and we have everything here from academics to politicians to some country folks
to lawyers.
To lawyers.
There we go. And Jennifer got referred to us through Paul McManus. A lot of you know Paul McManus from our Facebook group, and he's coming to the Rise conference in August as well. And I think Paul had used Jennifer's for some of these different topics. And I was asking, hey, does anybody have any good referrals, good topics? And Paul said, man, if you could have her on to talk about estate planning, to talk about business succession planning, that would be a wonderful interview. So here we are. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet.
I like to get on a soapbox about this kind of thing because I think a lot of people don't, they have misperceptions or they think that estate planning is for rich people, and that can be farther from the truth.
Love it. So let me tell you a little story from the weekend / from like the last 6 years. I was sitting there. I don't know what struck me. It wasn't like hearing a sob story or anything. I think I was kind of feeling a little caught up-ish on work, which is scary to say because that never happens. And my wife went to bed early on Saturday night it was. And I thought to myself, you know what? I have been putting off this document with the title at the top that says, if Kyle gets attacked by a flock of turkeys and dies. I just like to describe it that way so it sounds friendlier and not as
right.
and not as difficult. What would happen? We've got 4 kids. I take care of all of our financials. I take care of all the logins to this and that. I'm running a business with payroll. I have employees. There's a lot of details. And if the turkeys attacked me and I went down, none of this was documented. So I spent a few years starting to document that. And here we are, the first day back after Memorial Day break. And we're going to talk about some of this planning, estate planning, business succession planning. So I'll kind of, if I could have you do 2 things to kick off, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you've arrived in the position you're in. And then I'm going to kind of open it up to have you just kind of start talking and teaching about this topic, if you would.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm an attorney, as you know, in Florida. I started out in Cleveland, Ohio, and I started, went to law school, grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, and thought I would never leave. Ended up getting married and moving to Tallahassee because my husband got a job at Florida State. So I start over, and I start over at a big law firm, and I learned how to do a lot of things. I learned how to practice law, basically, litigation and a lot of transactional work. And attorneys would come in and say, hey, so-and-so needs a will. Can you do it? It was sort of a side product. It was sort of an afterthought. Hey, so-and-so needs a quick probate. Can you do that? And that's how most lawyers learn how to do estate planning is you want a will. What do you want it to say? And I'll make it legal and you go on your way. Until I started seeing where the problems were with that. Until my grandmother, who died at 105.
What? 105?
Yep, 105, and as spry and with it as could be. But she was a little afraid and paranoid and didn't tell anybody what she had. And I saw what a mess that left. I saw what it left a mess for my mother. It left a mess for me. And it could be very different. And, she wouldn't even use me as her lawyer. She was so afraid of people knowing her business. And so the lawyer that she used was the guy down the street who was provided by her union where she retired from. And I don't want to bash the guy, but he did it the same way I was taught to do it, which is, what do you want your will to say? And when I saw that play out and how that, affected our family and what a mess it left, because he didn't educate her, I just changed everything. And I kind of went to school and said, all right, you're going to work with me. We're going to go to school and we're going to spend 2 hours. It's not hard. Somebody just needs to tell it to you. It does help that, the first couple of years that I practiced, I taught estates and trusts and wills in a paralegal program. So I sort of had this foundation of how do I explain this and how do I teach it? And so all my clients start with that. Also have always represented small businesses. And then once I became a small business owner, I learned the hard way of what a challenge that is. And I think your listeners are no different than me. We just have a different practice.
Sure.
Learning how to hire employees, learning how to, manage our business. And like you said, what happens if I'm the only one that knows, has the key to the kingdom? What happens if I go?
Yeah. So when we think of this big topic of estate planning, if we were to kind of simplify that a little bit for me or for some people listening, and kind of why it's just so important for business owners to take seriously, how would you kind of teach us that?
I would tell you that there are two things that you should be thinking about. Keep your family out of court and conflict, and make sure that you don't leave your family or your business or your employees with a mess if you can't be there to take care of things. Whether that's because you're incapacitated because the turkeys got you and you're somewhere recovering and you can't manage things, or the bus takes you out and you're gone. So thinking about keeping your family out of court and conflict, and that could be some challenge from a business owner, that could be some IRS issues or internal fighting. And then, just don't leave a mess behind.
Got it. So when you think about what are the components of estate planning?
Well, a real estate plan is a whole lot more than a will. A lot of people think I need a will. And if they think like my grandmother, if I have a will, everything will be, hunky-dory. Well, sometimes a will make things worse because it guarantees that you're going to court. It guarantees that you're doing a probate. So a real estate plan may have a will, and it will. But you really have to have and think about a financial power of attorney so that if the turkeys get you, somebody can write those checks for you.
Way to just embrace my silly analogy there.
We're going with it. We're going to roll with it.
We're going full out turkey here, folks.
Yep. If you have, if you are, in a situation where you can't speak for yourself, somebody who can make medical decisions for you, you have to have those HIPAA waivers in place because legal departments in a hospital are not going to let your loved ones see your medical records unless they know that you're okay with that. And then the gift of all gifts is a living will, which is something like my dad didn't have that. And he died like 10 years ago and he had a stroke. So he was on a machine and it was just cruel to my mother. And having to say, this is my mother's decision to pull that plug. It's a gift that you can give to your family to say, no, I'm going to make that decision myself. And you're going to carry it out. But that, you've made that decision for yourself. So 5 basic documents in every estate plan. And then when you want to take it to the next level, we can talk about incorporating trust work into that, which would avoid the entire probate process.
Let's kind of dig into that a little bit, if you will. So if we have those 5 main documents in place, let's make sure everybody was paying attention. A will, financial power of attorney.
Yep.
Medical.
Yes.
Decisions. HIPAA waivers.
HIPAA waivers.
And then the gift of all gifts, according to Jennifer, a living will. Those are the 5.
Those are the 5.
And if I'm a business owner listening to this and they're driving around, they're listening and whatnot, if they don't have it, it kind of goes back to what you said. It's going to turn into conflict. It's going to keep your family in court. It's just a mess of what were the intentions? What should we do with this? So if we have those 5, go ahead.
Yeah, even if there's not a what was the intentions, the statutes will have a will for you. If you don't have a will, your state statute will have one for you. And a lot of times that's fine. Everything goes to my wife, or everything gets divided between my spouse and my children. No big deal, but it guarantees a probate.
If you're a remodeler looking for a website that actually generates leads, not just sits there collecting dust, then listen up. Most remodeling websites look nice, but don't do much else. That's why Builder Funnel created The Foundation, a performance-based website theme built specifically for remodelers. It's designed to attract, engage, and convert homeowners into high-quality leads. With The Foundation, you get a beautiful, high-converting website optimized for SEO, packed with lead capture tools, and powered by proven marketing strategies from over the last 15 years and in dozens of markets. Plus, their recent client satisfaction ratings have been off the charts. So if you're ready for a website that actually helps grow your business, head over to builderfunnel.com/ROTR. That's builderfunnel.com/ROTR to learn more. So we have those five documents, and you said kind of that next level when you get that foundation in place is to look into the trust side of things. Tell us about that.
Right. So the next level that people think about, all right, I don't want to have a probate. I want to avoid probate altogether. Now, a trust is just a contract, and it can say anything you want. And it is most often used in estate planning to avoid probate, and sort of like a pre-probate or a private probate, where you retitle all of your assets, and this is where your business comes into play. You retitle all of your assets into your trust, and then when you become incapacitated or you die, you're the initial trustee. You slide out. The person you named to come in behind you slides back in, and they just manage your life. And then you put rules in there. Where do you want your things to go at your death or when you become incapacitated? A lot of sophisticated, we call them design sessions. We can design a trust to do all kinds of things. And some cases, we can design it for asset protection too. So how does this play into your business? Well, the business that you have is an asset. And so that is something that if you die would have to go through probate. And in order for it to go through probate, it has to be valued. So having a business appraiser value your business could be very expensive. And it's ephemeral. It's hard to know. Is it 10 times the what I've billed that year? Is it less my assets? It's all kinds of things that go into that. So could be a problem for your family if that valuation takes some time and costs some money and it ties up your probate. When you use trust work, you don't have to deal with all of that because the trust owns the asset and the trust never dies. So you can put in rules if that and the other. And then, a lot of people who are doing business maybe start out as a sole proprietor. So they own the assets of that business in their personal name. When they move up to the next level in business ownership, they might create a limited liability company. Sometimes a corporation, but most of us are using limited liability companies. That's usually a see-through asset or a pass-through asset if it's a single member LLC. In some states, you have reasons for adding a second member, making it a multi-member LLC. There's all kinds of asset protection things that could go into play with that.
And that could be a regular LLC. This could be an S corp, which allows.
Well, an S corp is a tax election, yeah, and it's a different kind of entity. But there's all kinds of things which is very state specific. But you want to make sure that what you own in that LLC is put in your trust because that's the value that would have to go through probate. So this is true of any small business. You want to make sure that your business has, before you even make that decision, you should know what do you want to have happen with your business. So as you grow and you create a company and you have employees, what do you envision? What's your exit strategy? And sometimes it's by choice. I'm going to retire and my children are going to take over. And sometimes it's, what if the turkeys come out to play that night and I don't make it back home? Would you want, maybe it's a trusted staff member. You would want to make sure that the company continued on with that staff person. Do you want them to buy it? Do you want to gift it to them? And you can do that in your estate plan, but you're first going to look at your operating agreement. And if you have everything in your operating agreement that, kind of lays out, well, what happens if I can't be here? And then your operating agreement is kind of hand in glove with your estate plan. They work together. And so
Gotcha.
it's, it's all part of, it's an asset that you have to address. And there's so many different ways to skin that cat. There's so many different ways to get from A to B.
Yeah.
That's why
Even
you
even the
can,
what even though you're describing it of, we have you call them design sessions where we start looking at, we've got option A, we've got option B, we've got option C. And just as you're describing it, although even when I was putting that little document together, it was a little emotional putting some of it together. I was putting some notes in there of like, all right, if you're reading this, here's something, and really speaking to my wife and some friends who I wanted to like, and, help her through some of these things. Even as I'm hearing you talk about it, it's like, we are professional business people. We care about our families. We work so hard to build this business. We put so much effort into financials and marketing and sales and leadership. And we also need to guard against issues that whether like you said, incapacitated, not able to run it, whether we pass away, the idea of just leaving that for our family members is not correct. It's not true. It's not what we need to be doing. And I like how you're explaining it. One, I can hear people already with takeaways of going, okay, I've heard of trust before. Oh, that makes more sense. Oh, I've heard of some of those documents. I don't think I've done those. Or maybe we did create a will 10 years ago. We need to dust those things off and kind of regroup. If you're in Florida, you should reach out to Jennifer. If you're in other states, you can reach out to one of your local attorneys. But carry on. I just wanted to encourage there of some action that some people could take.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, what you want to do is look at what you have. I mean, you spend so much time building your business. A lot of us don't think about, what happens at the end of our business. And that could be because you made a ton of money and you want to retire. It doesn't have to be, some sort of dire negative thing. You went, on a trip around the world and you decided to stay somewhere. If you had trust work in place, you could just call up your successor trustee and say, take over.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes things a lot easier. So yeah, we try to talk about things in a jovial way. We always try to put a positive spin on stuff, but sometimes the bus comes and takes you out, and then we have to have that
Yeah.
conversation
Have you
too.
heard, have you heard the new thing that's out there of like, if it was a gorilla versus 100 men, who would win? Have you heard that little shtick lately?
I have not.
Okay, that's a shtick that's going around, and it is interesting to think about. The other thing that I have over the years talked to my children about of whether it be turkeys, of going, all right, how many turkeys before you think you would be overtaken? It's kind of, and then you can do different animals, and you could do different scenarios to keep it jovial. Is kind of the goal there. Anyways, so I think you're going to embrace this turkey thing, which
I
is
think
which
so
warms
too.
which warms
I
my
like the
heart.
turkey. Yeah.
2 years from now, you'll be like, I did that podcast with that guy. It was remodeling, the turkey guy. I'll be known as the turkey guy to you. Okay, so if I'm a remodeler and I'm listening to this and you're advising me, I haven't gotten much of this going, tell me some of the first steps that I should take. What are some of the things that I should be doing, thinking about, preparing, etc.?
Okay. Well, you want to look, it's twofold. You want to look at two things: your personal estate plan. Do I have a will in place? Do I have my power of attorney documents? Do I have my health care? And you might not. But you also want to look at your business. And there's a whole process you can go through just to analyze, as any business owner, do I have the right insurance? Do I have the right accounting measures in place? Do I have the bookkeeper? Am I filing my taxes? Am I taking the deductions that I'm entitled to? So those are just basic, kind of the three-legged stool. I need insurance and accountants and, a good lawyer. Okay, I have all that in place. All right, so now,
Wait, there's not good lawyers out there?
I, so I hear.
Oh,
So I hear. You want to work with somebody you can have a conversation with.
I know.
All right, so you've got all that in place, and then you say, all right, do I have an operating agreement? Now, in Florida, an operating agreement is not required, but it is required if you work with me, because it just talks about your exit strategy. It talks about, where is this going to go? Who's going to take over? When can, do you as a remodeler want to take in a partner and then find yourself in a partnership with their spouse? This is what movies are made of. This is what, funny movies are made of, because it's like, no, I don't want to do business with somebody I didn't intend to do business with. So and so dies and their spouse comes in, and now you've got a nightmare. So what kind of rules in your operating agreement are going to account for that? And then, of course, always in an operating agreement is another kind of contract. In every contract, you should figure out, how does it end? Where does it end? And that is true with an operating agreement. Where does this business end? I may not want it to end during my lifetime, but then we should put that in there. Well, I think that if I were to retire or make so much money or win the lottery and I don't want to do this anymore, I want my staff to be able to buy it. So I'm going to kind of put provisions in there. And that plays hand in glove with your estate plan, because it is a personal asset. At the end of the day, you own those membership interests in your personal capacity. So that's one of the things that in your estate plan you want to address. What happens? I'm going to take my personal membership interests to my company and put them in my trust so that the business can run and operate in my absence and whatever, but my family's going to get own the value of that when I die.
Gotcha.
So that's how they work hand in glove. So, the first thing that any remodeler should do, or any small business owner should do, is check and make sure that they have thought those things through. And if they haven't, they should start. Don't do it.
It's time to sit down.
Sit down with somebody. Don't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Too many people come in with their documents, and it's like a nightmare, because I can't fix somebody else's documents. And it's just find a trusted lawyer.
Yeah. It's also reminding me, we didn't have any of those foundational documents done a few years back, and we did that and found a local attorney that my financial advisor had referred. So we went through that, and we also, through that, he's like, well, you should set up a trust. And not knowing much about this, he explained it to me. It wasn't a huge undertaking. It wasn't a huge deal. There was definitely some paperwork involved. But one thing that I'm reminded of as you were talking, I went, oh, crap. Jennifer, you would advise me that now that I have a trust, that my home and the mortgage and the deed should probably be updated. I should send a letter to the mortgage company and or whatever and have that named in my trust versus in my name. Isn't that true?
Right.
What?
So
it's been 2 years since I got my trust done, and I haven't done that yet.
Okay. Here's one of the biggest problems I see. People bring me their very, very expensive trusts, and they did them 10 years ago. And I know before they walk in my office that they haven't funded their trust. Funding is like the last step. Because they're very fancy law firm, expensive lawyer said, here's your trust, congratulations. If you want help funding it, that's the next step, and that'll be another $5,000. And so they say, oh, it's a good trust. I'm so proud of this. And 10 years go by, they want to show me their trust, and I know it's not funded. It's worthless if it's not funded.
And not funded meaning we haven't updated the 401k to be in the trust name. We haven't.
Yeah. So the trust is a contract, and every single asset you own has to attach somehow. They have to attach, or the rules of that trust will not apply to that asset, including your membership interests in your limited liability company, including the stocks you own in your corporation if you've done that kind of planning, and your home, and your beach house, and your mountain house, and the CD that your grandma left you for $5,000. All of that would have to go through probate, and it would bypass your trust unless you somehow connected it to your trust. So when you work with a lawyer that went through the kind of stuff I went through, and there are lots of us out there, you're going to come back for a series of meetings, and the last meeting is going to be, all right, let's talk about funding. Let's retitle your property in the name of your trust. Now, there's federal legislation that says that, you can move your home into your trust without there being any tax consequences. I mean, it's part of estate planning. And so you can do that. I mean, when you get into like second homes and things like that, you do need to get approval from your mortgage company. You do need to notify your insurance company that you've got this trust now to be insured. But you're absolutely right. It doesn't work unless you attach that asset to your trust. And with an LLC or a company, you're going to assign those interests into your trust, and you're going to make that trustee a member of your company. And, with a lawyer who knows what they're doing, it's very, very simple.
See, I felt good about what we did a few years ago, but I haven't finished the deal yet.
You haven't finished it.
If the turkeys come, I think it's still a mess on the other end. When you talk about the fancy lawyers and what, are you talking about like guys like Harvey Specter from Suits and stuff?
I don't. Yeah, I mean,
have you watched that show?
No, I did not watch this. that show. No.
It's a great show.
I'm not blasting them. I think that I think that people are intimidated by lawyers who charge a lot of money. And so they don't give it and they're worth it. I mean, if you can afford it, hire the best, but that's fine. But then what they get sticker shock and then they don't finish. And that is what the problem is. It's not the fancy lawyer.
Yeah. What I love about your story is, number one, like how you got into this was just personal and your own experience. And number two, you're taking something that is complex to the outsiders and not really understanding. You've made it very clear of, hey, this is the foundation, this is the next step. So I appreciate that so far. Yeah, because it can be intimidating. It can be a little overwhelming, but you've given us kind of some of our first steps. What are some other best practices when it comes to this estate planning and business succession side of things? What else comes to mind?
I think once you do the first couple things, once you figure out, do I have a plan? What would that look like? Let's look at our business and do an assessment of our business and figure out what the exit strategy is for the business. Does that, is that in lockstep with what I want for my personal plan? It's your job to have an attorney that you can have a good relationship with and communicate with. Make sure that that person is informing you of changes in the law. If you have a good estate plan, there shouldn't be a whole lot you need to do unless something major in your life changes. You get divorced, you have more kids, you inherit a bunch of money. And then you want to make sure you do a check-in, just like you do, quarterly with your business and your profit and loss. You don't have to do it as often with an estate plan, maybe every 1 to 3 years, or when something happens. But you should have a relationship with a lawyer who's also telling you, here's what the changes in the law are. I'll post stuff on my blog, but sometimes I will reach out to clients from a year or 2 years ago and say, hey, listen, I'm doing this different now, and I'm going to update your plan free of charge because I found a better way. And I think a lot of lawyers are like that. They want to make sure that what they've done has, integrity, even if it's a couple years old. So once you get it in place, once you know that how you want to do it, and you get the documents that you like, and you fund it, then it's your job to make sure it stays up to date every couple years. Take a look at it.
Got it. Very reasonable. I can't. When I was thinking about this recording, I'm like, oh, it's kind of a confusing topic, and there's so much to it. And I think for myself and for everybody listening, you've kind of simplified it, Jennifer.
Well, good.
You're like a lawyer superhero of sorts,
Well,
simplifying the very. Oh, okay. Well, maybe. Wonderful. So, any other kind of hey, remember this? I feel like we've got the majority of what I was kind of aiming for here. Maybe anything else that's coming to mind that you want to toss out there, and then also how people can reach out to you if they're interested in chatting a little bit further, especially our Florida friends.
Right. Well, I think we've covered it. I mean, check out your stuff. Make sure that you know what you want. If you don't, get a relationship with a lawyer who can walk you through the steps. That's pretty much the simplest I can make it. If you're in Florida and you want to talk with me, my website is flalawfirm.com, floridalawfirm.com, flalawfirm.com. And you can, there's a lot of information on there. The blogs are updated, every week, every other week, with some new tips and stuff like that. And you'll be able to reach out to me through the website. My email's on there. And I do these kinds of classes. I can do them by Zoom. I can do them, in a group setting, or, one-on-one. And just, let's figure out what your pain points are. Where are you with your planning? And maybe you're at ground zero, and maybe you've done some documents and you want them refreshed. And talk about, well, how can we make this better, and what do you have? Good. Other thing, and
then also we have a rapid fire finish. Okay. So you didn't even know it was coming. Go ahead.
I do want to make one point. One thing you can do, even if you don't have a plan, and you had said that you started this, do an inventory of everything you have. Get an Excel spreadsheet, get a notebook, get something, write down every single bank account numbers, every single insurance policy, the policy numbers, estimated value of that, every single thing you have, so that if the turkeys take you out before you get your plan in place, your family is not going to miss anything. You're not going to lose an asset because they didn't know about it. So if there's anything you can do on your own before you even start this process is inventory your stuff.
It's very, very good. Rapid fire. I'm going to say a sentence and then you're going to give me a sentence response. If I have a will, I'm good.
You're good for probate.
Oh, that was a good one. Only wealthy people need trusts. That first one you nailed out of the park, like grand slam.
Wealthy people are the only people who can afford not to have a trust.
Oh, you're good at this. My spouse can just take over the business if I die. They'll figure it out.
Your spouse does not have authority to run that business or sign your checks.
Ooh. Estate planning is kind of a one and done thing. Checkbox.
Estate planning is captures a moment in time, and time changes your life significantly.
This is going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars. It's so overwhelming and expensive.
An estate plan is far less expensive than making your family go through probate.
Phew. You didn't even know those were coming, and you just knocked them out of the ballpark.
Well, I hear those. Those are the questions
Right.
I hear all the time. Good. That's the pushback I get.
Good. Jennifer, thank you so much. You served us and my audience well, and I really, really appreciate it. Everybody, if you're in Florida, reach out to her. You can ask Paul McManus if you see him at the Rise Conference for how his experience was. And anybody else listening to this, I know this is another thing on the to-do list, but this is a kind thing to do for your family. It's a professional thing to do for your team members and your business, and it's something that we need to lean into instead of kind of just lean away from. So, Jennifer, thanks for making it clear to us, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you. Same to you.
You bet.